Good evening. The meeting is now live and is being broadcast and recorded. Please welcome the Mayor of the Borough of Bracknell Forest, Councillor Jenny Penfold.
Hi, good evening everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Council. I'm waiving the requirement in Council procedure rules requiring councillors to stand when addressing the meeting, so please remain seated. The meeting is being broadcast and recorded. If there are any technical issues, please bear with us. I now declare the meeting open. Right, are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I have received apologies from Councillors Barnard, C. Eberle, T. Eberle, Brown and Gore.
Are there any other apologies?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Chief Executive, is there anyone joining online?
Councillors joining remotely, please turn on your microphone and state that you are present when I call your name. Anyone who does not respond will be recorded as giving their apologies. My understanding is that there's just one councillor, which is Councillor Zaharuddin.
Present.
Thank you.
As a correct message, record the minutes of the meeting of the Council held on the 10th of July 2024. I'm happy to move the approval of the minutes. Before I ask Councillor Temperton to second the motion, please indicate if you have an issue with the accuracy. No. Councillor Temperton, would you second it, please? That they're a correct record.
I do second this, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Temperton. As nobody has indicated they may have an issue, those are agreed. Right. Agenda item 3 is declarations of interest. The full text is set out on the agenda papers at Right, so Councillor Hayes, you have an interest.
Yes, thank you.
Affected or pecuniary?
Just for transparency.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the interest of transparency, I would like to declare that I was the chair of the Joint Waste Disposal Board meeting referred to under agenda item 7, so it's recorded. Thank you.
Thank you, that's noted. Oh, sorry, who else have we got?
I was also there too.
Okay, thank you. Carries Harrison, behind somebody I can't see. Thank you. Anybody else? Right. We now come to agenda item 4, which are the Mayor's announcements. Right, good evening all. I'll start with my news that many councillors already know. Sadly, my lovely husband Nick passed away in late August. He was my mayoral consort and attended many events with me when his health would allow it. He was enjoying the role, sometimes to his own surprise. As you can see from the slides, July was quite a busy month, of very interesting events to go to. August was quieter, and I have to thank my Deputy Councillor Cochrane for stepping in when I was suddenly had to drop out. Thank you. As you know, my Mayor's charity this year is the ARC, and I've asked Andrea, the CEO, to come and tell those of us who don't already know about the work of the art. So welcome, Andrea. If you'd come to the lectern, please.
Good evening. It's nice to see some familiar faces and some new ones. So for those of you who don't know about the ARC, we've been actually around for 40 years in one guise or another. Originally as a learning disability arts charity, but over the years we've expanded with who we work with and what work we do. I think we're a bit of a hidden gem really, but quite a lot of people do engage with us. They just don't realise because we have many different names. So if I sort of try to cover some of the work that we do, social activities are really important for disabled people, particularly those that find themselves quite isolated. So we run a number of different social groups and events. We have a regular Friday night disco, which is attended by about 80 people with learning disabilities. We have social groups that are specifically for people, autistic adults. Days out, they have a great time, better time than me in the office, I think. Legoland on Monday, weekends away, holidays. But those social activities are really quite important and they can be quite hard to fund because everyone sees them as maybe not essential, not critical. We've just done a big research project with Holloway University, which hopefully will be published in a week or two, which will sort of demonstrate the value of those type of activities. So that's the fun stuff, but then we do some serious stuff. So I think I recognise some of you from some of the many forums and meetings that I attend where I represent my members. We're very much a user-led charity. Our motto is basically nothing about us without us. So it's my job really to be the person that comes and speaks and tries to get people to engage with our members. So I think I'm a member of the Access Advisory Panel and various other things like that. Some of you found out about us during the pandemic because at the time we were the organisation delivering Healthwatch Bracknell Forest, and we decided to start a volunteer initiative working with the council very closely and our partners that involve. Initially we had 1,800 volunteers delivering parcels to people, collecting medication, and I know that many people in this room were involved in some way. We still have those volunteers. The service still runs for those that need it. Just because COVID isn't up there, it's still around and there are still people who are vulnerable to the illness. So people can still phone us and our volunteers will go and collect their prescriptions or do their shopping. Vaccine Centre in Bracknell, I think we've delivered something absolutely incredible, like 45,000 volunteer hours at the centre, and that takes quite a lot of coordination. And that again is just about to start again in the autumn. We also currently provide the Signal for Carers service for Bracknell Forest Council, so we provide support to unpaid family carers in the borough. There's just under 1,000 carers registered with us at the moment. As a basic offer, we provide information and advice, but if needed, we can provide one-to-one support. Our carers support worker has something like a 99% success rate for attendance allowance and carers allowance forms, and she's highly valued, and we were very pleased that she won an award at Pride of Bracknell this year. We also have a shop that I know some councillors have visited, Forget Me Not. It's currently shut because we're refurbing and we're opening on the 1st of October. And we will be offering a snack bar service to complement the sort of community groups that we have running there. I'm just trying to think, festivals, we go to festivals. We encourage people to volunteer to support the environment at festivals to reduce the amount of litter, but it's also a good opportunity for people to get work experience. And we take a mixed ability team, and it is one team and everyone is expected to do the tasks. Everyone's expected to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and pick up the litter, which at Reading Festival, I have to say, is not a pleasant experience. So, but they get to see live music, I get to see live music, so it's a really, really good experience. We have an internet radio show where people can broadcast, very varied, different tastes of music. And we now recently have started a community transport scheme. Two of the drivers in the last 2 years have done over 1,000 journeys each. So it's quite a significant amount of support that we're offering. And I think that's probably a good overview. I'm sure I've probably forgotten something. I should have written it down. We're really excited to be the Mayor's charity because not only does this give us an opportunity to raise funds, which we are in the same position as many charities. The demand for our services is increasing, funding is going down, people can't afford to give us donations, so this is obviously a boost. But it also, I think, gives us an opportunity to raise awareness of some of the issues that disabled people face currently, and also unpaid carers. So we hope to plan a few small events, some quiz nights. So I hope that you'll all buy tickets, and I'm sure it will get quite competitive. We have been the Mayor's charity, and I think it was 2004. And Councillor Hayes, I think, will remember some of the events that we did. So yeah, and we do hope that hopefully with the support perhaps of Councillor Bidwell that we might be able to arrange a golf day, maybe towards the end of the year. And we're really open to anything, and our volunteers are keen to support the Mayor this year. And as I say, it's a chance for us to raise awareness of some important issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. I hope everybody will take part, and I know some councillors have volunteered to help on events and things, so thank you. Right. The last little part of my messages. Traditionally, there's been a staff raffle just before Christmas. Proceeds to the Mayor's charity. For this, we need prizes. I'm told that shops in the Lexicon are less willing to do it now because of the economic climate, to donate things. But if anyone's got anything they could contribute, or knows anyone who could contribute, please contact me, or give it to me, or to Liz Seaman. Right. We now come to agenda item 5, the report of the executive. Would Councillor Temperton like to present the executive report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I hope you'll all indulge me sitting down and not going up to the podium because I've broken my ankle and I'm less agile than I usually am. Anyway. First, I'd like to start off with some really good news. Earlier this month, we received a very special silver award from the National Defence Employer Recognition Scheme. The scheme recognises employers that have provided exceptional support to the armed forces community. It encourages employers to support defence and inspire others to do the same. To be eligible for an award, you must pledge, demonstrate or advocate support to defence and the armed forces community. Silver awards are only available to organisations that have signed the Armed Forces Covenant. For those of you unfamiliar with the Armed Forces Covenant, it's a promise to ensure that those who serve or have served in the armed forces and their families are treated fairly. This is incredibly important to us locally, and so I'm delighted that our efforts to support our serving armed forces personnel, their families and our veterans has been recognised nationally. Thank you to Councillor Georgia Pickering, our Armed Forces Community Covenant Champion, for receiving the award on behalf of the Council. And thank you to all our staff and councillors who have worked so hard on achieving this. Now moving on to the executive report. Since we last met at the July full council, there has been just one executive meeting on the 16th of July. Thames Water Review. The executive accepted the recommendations from the Environment and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Panel of the Thames Water, Scrutiny Panel of Thames Water. This review was requested by the Overview and Scrutiny Commission. The review highlighted the responsibilities of both Thames Water and the Environment Agency. It also outlined the current limitations of our sewage system and the planned improvements over the next few years. Community Safety Plan Consultation. The Executive approved a public consultation of our Community Safety Plan for 2024-27. This consultation began on July the 22nd and ran for 4 weeks. Not only do we have a statutory duty to get local people's opinion on what we should prioritise, it's essential that we gather feedback from everyone in our area on issues like crime and substance misuse so we can address their concerns effectively. Trial of hydro-treated vegetable oil. The executive agreed a trial with HVO fuel in one of our waste collection vehicles from September 2024 for at least a year. They also agreed to purchase a 5,000 litre fuel tank for storage. HVO is a more environmentally friendly alternative to diesel. It can reduce carbon emissions by up to 90%. Capital expenditure outturn for 23-24. Our capital budget for 23-24 was 86.168 million. The executive noted the outcome capital expenditure and approved the carry forward of 47.334 million to the 24-25 capital programme. The executive recommends that council approves carry forward for the specific schemes listed in paragraph 5.5 of the capital expenditure outturn 23-24 report, being management of open spaces software and library printers. Revenue expenditure outturn for 23-24. The executive noted the revenue budget for 23-24, which was 90.512 million. This represents an overspend of 1.225 million over the agreed budget. The executive approved the earmarked reserves and budget adjustments. The executive recommends that council notes the Treasury management performance in 23-24 as set out in Annex B of the Revenue Expenditure Outcome 23-24 report. Productivity plan. The executive approved our productivity plan, which had to be submitted to the Department for Housing, Local Government and Communities by July the 19th, 2024. This was a new requirement by the government as part of the 24-25 local government finance settlement. Procurement of agency staff. The executive approved the procurement of a new agency staff vendor. Our current contract with Matrix expires on March the 31st, 2025. Academy Trust for the SEMH School. The executive approved the procurement plan to find an academy trust to run the new social emotional mental health school on the All Saints Warfield site. The trust will be selected in collaboration with the Department for Education. The new school will offer 50 places, with 41 of those places due to be taken up by the Bracknell Forest children. Climate Change Annual Report. The executive reviewed our progress on climate change following a motion passed in September 23. We aim to reach net zero by 2030. This is in line with the Council's declaration of a climate and biodiversity emergency. Can I just say that this report, and I'll add to the notes up there, is a very, very positive report. And as it's part of my portfolio, I'd like to say the increase in awareness of the need to have climate change action has been enormous. The report lists a great deal of achievements. The carbon dioxide reduction has been measured and monitored. Communication about the actions we've taken has greatly increased. The Climate Change Summit held in July 2023 resulted in the Joint Climate Action Board, which has 2 members for each of the 10 sectors representing each spectrum of our community. The Council is only responsible for 2% of our carbon emissions. The JCAB is producing the community climate strategy to cut the remaining 98% of the carbon emissions. The Council strategy is expected to be finalised before the end of this financial year. I'd like to thank all the officers responsible for producing this annual report. It is positive and we've achieved a great deal in this year. Following the successful inaugural climate change conference in July 23, which I've just spoken about, a second one was held in July 24. It brought together more than 150 local businesses, community groups, schools, residents, councillors and council staff. The attendees were updated on the council's progress and took part in various workshops to help inspire change in their sectors. We also, in July, more than 80 primary and secondary children from 14 Bracknell Forest schools came together to address a climate change action. The children took part in indoor and outdoor activities to learn about energy use, food and biodiversity. Each school made a pledge committing to specific action to help improve sustainability with their school, and I shall be visiting the schools to make sure the action is happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Temperton. Does anyone have any questions for Councillor Temperton? Right. If there aren't, Deputy Mayor, are there anyone joining remotely? Right. So, we now come to the first recommendation on page 13 of the agenda report, relating to the capital expenditure outturn 23-24. Does any councillor have a question of the executive member for finance and corporate improvement? Councillor Neil. Right. Deputy Mayor, is there anyone online?
One online, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. If there are no further questions, Councillor Neil, would you like to move the recommendations?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There have been a number of changes within the capital scheme this year, not least the schools block related to the Safety Valve Capital Programme, which is a huge impact on council's budget overall. And the town centre has been dependent on external providers where we have not been able to make the progress we wanted. With any new borrowing placing a pressure in the revenue budget, we need to carefully balance our capital spending ambitions.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Neil. Do you want to just move the recommendation?
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
I'm pleased to move a recommendation at 5.5.
Right. Right. Is that seconded?
I'd like to second it. Thank you.
We'll now move to
Councillor
the debate. So, Councillor Neil, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'm ever so sorry.
Well, finish off your speech.
So keen to get my point across. I'll pick up where I left off. The town centre has been dependent on external providers where we have not been able to make the progress we wanted. With any new borrowing placing a pressure in the revenue budget, we need to carefully balance our capital spending ambitions to make sure they are affordable. The £6.4 million of savings being reported in this report will help with that. And looking ahead, we need to focus our efforts in delivering the schemes where funding has already been agreed before we bring forward any new proposals. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Temperton, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right to speak?
I'll reserve.
Thank you. Does any councillor wish to speak? Deputy, does any mayor?
No one online, Madam
No one
Mayor.
online. Right. If no one wants to speak, would you like to speak, seconder, please?
Nothing to say. Thank you.
And Councillor Neil, would you like to sum up?
Nothing to add, thank you.
Right. The recommendation is set out on screen. The Democratic Services Officer will count our votes, so please make sure your hand is clearly raised. Only those in the room can vote. Can all those present in the chamber indicate by raising your hand if you support the recommendation? Thank you. Are you okay? Thank you. Are there any against or any abstentions? No. Thank you. That is carried. We now come to the second recommendation on page 13 of the agenda, relating to revenue expenditure outturn 2023-24. Does any councillor have a question of the executive member for finance and the corporate improvement? Councillor Neil. O'Neill. Neil. So, no. If no councillors wish to speak, are there any from those remotely online?
No one online, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. If there's no further questions, Councillor Neil, would you like to remove the recommendation?
I'll get it right this time. Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. Happy to move the recommendation at 5.6.2.
Is that seconded?
Councillor Templeton agrees to second it. Thank you.
Now we'll move to the debate. Councillor Neil, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I want to extend our thanks to the efforts of all officers in what was a challenging year. The report highlights the financial challenges we face as an authority, and these will continue. However, in Bracknell, we do have a solid reputation for robust and pertinent financial management, and the shift in position from what we declared last summer of £4 million to the final outturn of £1.2 million demonstrates this. The change in central government has enlightened us all to the situation regarding public spending, and we've clearly seen the impact this has led to on local government funding. We continue to put across our case for fair and proper funding for local government, whilst acknowledging what the Labour government has inherited. In the meantime, Bracknell residents can be confident that we will continue to deliver on priorities with a track record for delivery. And I'm pleased to move the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Templeton, do you wish to speak or reserve? Sorry.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Does any councillor wish to speak? Councillor Harrison?
Could I sum that up by saying some big boys did it and ran away?
Sorry? Does any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Templeton, do you wish to speak?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right. So if no one wants to speak, is there anyone online who would like to speak?
No one online. Madam.
Okay. Right. Councillor Neil, would you like to sum up?
Nothing further to thank you, Madam Mayor.
Right. The recommendation is set out on the screen. The Democratic officer will count the votes, our votes. So please make sure your hand is clearly raised. Only those in the room can vote. Any against? Sorry, any? I meant any for. Put your hand up if you. I'm jumping too quickly. Right, okay. Any against or any abstentions? No. Thank you. That is carried. We now come to item 6, the adoption of the revised contract standing orders to the Constitution on page 17 of the agenda. Does any councillor have a question of the Chair of Governance and Audit Committee, Councillor O'Regan? No. Deputy Mayor, is there anyone online?
No one online, Madam Mayor. No.
Thank you. If there's no further questions, Councillor Reagan, would you like to move the recommendations?
Yes, I'd be pleased to move the recommendation that this council approves the adoption of the proposed contract standing orders into the council's constitution. They've been revised in order to comply with the Procurement Act 2023.
Is that seconded? Oh, okay. Fine. You, Councillor Neil, was going to second it, wasn't she? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Neil, seconded.
We now move to debate. Councillor O'Regan, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, please. First, I'd like to say a very big thank you to fellow members of the Governance and Audit Committee who have gone through these proposed changes to the contract standing orders with a fine-tooth comb at our last committee meeting, and that's why we brought them to the full council for approval. Now, I fully realise that reading through the extensive report that we've had from our officers can be a little bit dry, but I think we should thank our officers for the sterling work that they've put in to implement these changes. Some of them are fairly complex. They've done an absolutely fantastic job under quite a lot of pressure because this act only came into force under a year ago. So I think I'd like to note our thanks to officers who've worked on these revisions.
Thank you. Councillor Neil, do you wish to speak or reserve?
Reserve.
Does any councillor wish to speak? Right, Deputy Mayor, is there anyone online who wishes to speak?
No one online, Madam Mayor.
Right. Councillor O'Neill, would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's important to recognise that whilst these changes are a legal requirement, they are a large undertaking and require a substantial amount of work for officers and the organisation, both culturally and procedurally. In addition to what the Act requires us to do, we have taken the opportunity to make some revisions based on feedback, audit finding and our officers' professional experience. Constitutionally, these changes put approvals at appropriate levels. Officers have increased independence at lower levels of spend, but there is increased oversight from senior officers and members at higher levels of spend, in line with approval levels used in other authorities. We do need to note that these changes are required by law and we don't have a choice, and I thank the officers for their work on the changes up to this point and over the coming months. Thank you.
Councillor Reagan, do you wish to speak and sum up?
Yes, I could just add a few words. So the legislation actually has an interesting background. It started work back in 2020. It was part of the movement to reduce red tape following our exit from the EU. And there was a national procurement policy statement in 2021. Now, the interesting thing about that is that it has supports and encourages that procurement is now made in line with national and local outcomes for public benefit in order to secure the creation of new businesses, jobs and skills, waste reduction, climate change, mitigation. So we can incorporate social values, the location of businesses, in our procurement policy, where before that wasn't allowed under the Local Government Act 1988. So, a highlight is that it encourages small businesses, SMEs, and within that definition we have micro businesses, small businesses with less than 10 employees. We're going to make it easier for them to apply to become a supplier to local government, and we can, as I said earlier, we can incorporate local issues to make sure that we're procuring sensibly to meet the objectives of the local community. And therefore I strongly support the adoption of the new standing orders. Thank you.
Thank you. The recommendation is set out on screen. The Democratic Services Officer will count our votes, so please make sure your hand is clearly raised. Only those in the room can vote. Can all those present in the chamber indicate by raising their hand if you support the recommendation? Yeah, that seems to be unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, that is carried. The next item on the agenda is questions received under the Public Participation Scheme. We've received notice of 2 questions from residents which are set out at item 6 at the beginning of your agenda. The response for each question has been published as a supplementary to the agenda. The question and response will be displayed on the screen and will be taken as read. Each resident will have the opportunity to ask 1 supplementary question which should arise directly from the question or reply provided. The first question is from Chris Wright. Can I confirm that he is present in the room? He's online. Thank you. Chris Wright, would you like to ask Councillor Purnell a supplementary question?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. So first of all, obviously, thanks for the considered response to my initial question. I seek further clarification on one part of that question, which I asked, which is specifically, did the Chief Executive make a misleading statement when she said the element of the privacy notice that you have highlighted has not changed since the system was introduced in 2020, which was approved by councillors at the time? This differs from what was agreed and published in the transcript of the RE3 Joint Waste Board meeting in 2020.
Right.
So it's clarification on that part. Was there a misleading statement?
Councillor Purnell is willing to make a statement.
Thank you very much for your supplementary question. However, the answer to that question has already been provided. I will reiterate that the Council takes concerns about transparency and accountability very seriously, particularly when it comes to the management of data and adherence to principles of good governance. The statement made by the Chief Executive was intended to clarify the Council's position on the booking system used at our recycling centres, specifically in relation to data collection practices. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Purnell. Thank you for joining us tonight, Chris. Please, can you leave the meeting now, and you can continue to watching via the public broadcast. The second question is from Chris Toll. Can I confirm that Chris Toll is in the chamber? Right. Thank you. Would you like to come to the lectern to ask Councillor Gilby your supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for the answer that I've received to this question. As stated in the answer, the consultation deadline is the 24th of September, and it's right that the Council is preparing a detailed response to the consultation, as indicated in the answer. It's important to keep central government informed of our planning policy, our local planning policy environment. Will the Council's So my question is, will the Council's consultation response include references to Bracknell Forest's plan-led and evidence-based approach to planning policy and the extensive coverage of Bracknell Forest with recently made neighbourhood plans? Thank you.
Councillor Gilby, can you please respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and indeed I'd like to thank the member for his question. This is an involved and thorough process that we're having to go through, but I can assure the member and indeed the wider public that all our consultation responses on any subject are evidence-led and do take account of the planning policy framework that has already been developed within the borough. So I can assure him that the consultation response will take that into account. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight, Chris.
All right.
Would you like to take your seat
Madam
back
Mayor.
in the gallery? Thank you. We have received notice of 4 questions from councillors, which are set out at item 7 at the beginning of your agenda and will be displayed on the screen in turn. The response from the relevant executive member to each question has been published as a supplementary to the agenda. Both questions and the responses will be taken as read. The first question is from Councillor McLean to Councillor Wright, Executive Member for Adult and Public Health, for Adults and Public Health. The response from Councillor Wright has been published and is shown on the screen. Councillor McLean, you may ask Councillor Wright 1 supplementary question. So, Councillor McLean, would you like to ask your appropriate question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Robert McLean. Does the executive member support Peter Swallow in voting to block an attempt to stop the cut in winter fuel allowance going to 12,689 people in Bracknell Forest?
Thank you for your question. I wasn't aware that that had happened. So sorry. I will. I'll look into that. But you're saying that he's voted to support the end of the winter fuel allowance. Okay. I feel that here in Bracknell we have a very good system to support people who are struggling with their energy bills. We have our welfare programme. We also have something called LIFT, which I've talked about in my answer. We know that if people are struggling with their energy bills, they know where to come to. We have warm hubs and we have plenty of voluntary services to support people. Thank you.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, that doesn't answer my question. Yes or no will do. Does she support what Peter Swallow did in the House of Commons to stop the winter fuel allowance being cut?
I don't think what Peter Swallow does is relevant to the question here, because you have asked what is happening in Bracknell Forest.
I asked the executive member if she supports what he does. Does she support what he did, or does she not? That is a decision for her.
Right.
I don't think I need to answer that question. Thank you.
Oh, yes, you do.
Excuse me, could we have a bit of order, please? She's doing her best to answer the question. Right. Moving on to the second question. This has been asked by Councillor Harrison to Councillor Jeffries, Executive Member for Culture, Delivery and Public Protection. Councillor Harrison, it is displayed on screen. Councillor Harrison, do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Jeffries?
Thank you, but just before I do that, I'd like to thank the executive member for the answer he's given to my question, and I appreciate the points he's made that it is a cat and mouse game with these fly tippers tipping rubbish. They'll move all about, so we need to keep up the impetus. As we no longer have an administration in this council that seems to be capable of bringing a budget in under budget, so we don't have, as I proposed, we use the previous Conservatives underspent to be able to fund additional cameras to chase fly tippers and to gather evidence. Will the executive member commit to keeping up this impetus by fighting his corner and getting funding for this programme to be built into next year's budget plans?
Right, Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Harrison, for your question. And as you know, I am fully committed to upholding public protection for Bracknell Forest. The fly tipping or environmental crime falls under the PPP remit, and this is a very important matter to us as an administration. As you're aware, fly tipping falls under the PPP, and on Monday, the 1st of September, members were invited to participate in a session and collaborate on priorities on some of the pressures that affect the PPP. The strategy around environmental crime goes far beyond CCTV. As a means to an end, the current strategy takes an intelligence-led approach to tackling the issue of fly tipping. This includes looking at trends, locations, identified by the analysis of intelligence, as well as looking at high-risk hotspots. We are constantly seeking to raise awareness and seek information from the public. The PPP will continue to deliver an effective service. However, financial pressures will be dictating the priorities of the future. Having said that, I will like to commit and assure you that this will remain an important issue on our priorities in protecting the public. Thank you, Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffries. Our third question has been asked by Councillor Allen to Councillor Neal, Executive Member for Finance and Corporate Investment. Councillor Allen, do you have a supplementary question for Councillor Neal?
Yes, I do have a supplementary question, but before I ask the question, can I actually just query the accuracy of this first sentence of the answer, where it says the core spending power reduced by 8% in real terms between 2010 and 2014. That's over 10 years ago. Does it mean 2010 and 2024? 2020 to 2024? I'm just confused why you would query, say the 8% was up to 2014.
No, apologies. It should be 2024. So that was a typo. We can get that correct.
So is it 2010 to 2024, or is it 2020 to 2024?
2010 to 2024. Correct.
Okay, thank you. My supplementary question is that in your budget speech in February, you stated that the plan was to reduce the use of reserves to balance the budget each year with the hope that by 2027 they would not need to be used. Given that you have said that the social care budget is increasing by 5 million per year, and the chances of the council getting any additional funding from the government are negligible, and the significant drain on our reserves from the safety valve programme, would the Cabinet member agree that without significant cuts going forwards, we're far more likely to have no reserves left by 2027?
Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Councillor Allen, for the question. And as you're aware, many of the pressures we faced last year are included in the 2024-2025 budget, and this also included a contingency of £4 million, which was the highest sum ever. Despite this, officers are currently reporting a potential overspend between 0.4 million and 3.2 million, although this has reduced for the Q1 position in the CPOR. The corporate management team and budget managers across the organisation are looking at all options to bring projected spending down to the budgeted figure between now and the year end. At this stage, their focus is on curtailing non-essential expenditure that won't have any material impact on service delivery. It's possible that further steps will need to be taken in the autumn if this isn't enough, and any proposals that include service changes will always be brought before councillors for consideration before they're implemented.
Thank you.
The fourth question has been asked by Councillor McLean to Councillor Temperton, Leader and Executive Member for Council Strategy and Climate Change. The question and her response is shown on screen. Councillor McLean, do you want to ask a supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor McLean. Yes, my supplementary is that clearly the Executive doesn't know whether they support attempts to stop the winter fuel allowance affecting our residents, but they do know that they want to change the name of the Executive to the Cabinet to provide clarity and consistency. Clearly, we've had clarity and consistency since this was adopted by the Council when it became a unitary authority and this model was open to us to use. So does this mean that our residents should expect this council's priorities to be changing the name of something that didn't have to have its name changed, rather than doing something that actually impacts our residents more closely, like the winter fuel allowance?
I think this is an important change, and I have decided to make it because I said I would take this council to the residents, and I have. So I've had a lot of consultation with residents, and there's a lot of confusion. And when I say to people, I'll report that and I'll get back to you from an executive officer, they often say, but then that's you. No, it's not. I'm an executive member. And there is a lot of confusion between being an executive officer and executive member. This has happened because we're taking the council and we're getting a lot of consultation and a lot of reaction from the residents. When the idea of a cabinet is clearly understood. The cabinet is elected people. In Parliament, the others are the professionals, and the Cabinet are the elected. And I think residents will understand much more the clarity of professionals being executives and Cabinet being elected members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Temperton. Now, we have received a motion submitted under Council Procedure Rule 11 of the Constitution, which is set out at item 8 at the beginning of your agenda. I think it is on screen, set out on screen. The motion will be moved and seconded and then debated in the usual way. So, You will be able to speak for no longer than 5 minutes. Councillors in the room will be invited to speak first. The mover of the motion will have the right to reply before the vote is taken. If an amendment is moved and seconded, the debate will begin on the amendment. Anyone who has already spoken on the substantive motion can speak again on the amendment. The mover of the substantive motion will have the right of reply at the end of the debate on the amendment before the vote is taken. Please note that since the agenda was published, the mover and seconder of the motion and the revised working is set out on the screen with the additional wording in red. Can it be read out, perhaps, if it's or made live? Shall I read out the paragraph that says red? Yeah. Council expresses concern in relation to... Oh, that's better. Council expresses concern in relation to the government's statement in Parliament on the 29th of July that the previous government's National New Hospital Programme, NHP, is to be completely reviewed. Sorry,
this is the new words.
Yeah, this is a new word. Because of their inadequate funding of the programme, this has brought in uncertainty and probably delays to provision of improved, safe and modern hospitals services for this area and for Bracknell Forest. I think the rest is the same as it was. Thank you. Right. Councillor Philip Thompson, would you like to propose your altered motion?
Yes, I would like to propose this motion. With the amendment.
Right.
Yeah.
Councillor Forster, do you second the motion?
I second this motion.
Right. Councillor Thompson, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would. I would like to start by asking everybody who has had a chance to read the motion consider the reason for the change, and that was the motion was caused by the change in funding arrangements by the government, and I thought it was necessary to put that wording in. I was born nearby to the site of Frimley Park Hospital in Watchetts, Camberley. I've spent many a day visiting friends and relatives at Frimley Park, and in 2018 I watched on a TV monitor an 8-minute operation by a marvellous heart surgeon taking out a blood clot and inserting a stent into one artery. That is the reason I am here this evening. So I've seen Frimley Park Hospital develop from the very first turf dug, first-hand as a local resident, and since as a patient and supporter, being a Foundation Trust member, with all its ups and downs over the years. My concern is particularly addressed, firstly, to the Trust and the Joint Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee that met on Friday. That they keep all the users in touch with progress and major problems as promised. The video of the Surrey Heath meeting on the 6th, Friday, is still being archived, whatever that might mean. So I don't actually know what took place on that meeting. I would therefore ask that they ensure that this is a public, what I would like to say next is to the council members representing us, Councillor Tony Virgo and Councillor Caroline Egglestone, that they ensure that there is public engagement and reporting to us of major decisions, such as the site chosen, and starting with the meeting on the 18th of October, or preferably before. And also that they ensure Frimley Park Trust make the project move forward with every opportunity, with new solutions where possible, rather than allowing delay. With critical path bottlenecks being anticipated and possibly being overcome by alternatives planned for in case they are needed. Thirdly, I would like to ask the Council Leader and our MP, Peter Swallow, that they ensure that the Government, and the Chancellor in particular, are aware of the impact of maybe a one-year delay in the budget for this particular project and the critical processes of this rebuild and relocation. I'd like to say RAC waits for no man. I won't explain the initials. If you are not familiar with it, I ask you to read what is going on at Frimley Park Hospital. If RAC deteriorates faster than presently predicted, then temporary measures will be needed at a much greater scale, and the cost, both financially and the human outcomes of deterioration, will be inevitable, and even more so, and especially if there is further delay than we have already had. There may be a great deal of pressure on our MP to accept that there is not enough or no money allocated for this particular project for the 5 years that it would take to complete, and that we must wait a further period to find out what will happen. There is an unpleasant consequence to delay. More people will be in pain for a longer period, and more will die. I don't think any of us want to sign up for that. If the review promised brings about change, that is okay, but delay is not acceptable, and I ask for your support for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Foster, would you like to speak now or reserve?
I'll reserve.
Thank you. Does any councillor wish to speak? Right. Yeah. Councillor Eggleston, who is one of the Bracknell members on the, I don't know what it's called, the health panel. Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much to Councillor Thompson for raising this. I can confirm that so far Councillor Virgo and myself have attended 2 meetings, both at Surrey for the JHOSC, the first one being in May and the second one last Friday, the 6th of September. The August meeting was cancelled by Frimley themselves. The May meeting was broadly around the plans for the new hospital and why a new hospital is needed. After each meeting, as soon as the minutes and the video are available, we do circulate to all councillors. I can confirm, as Councillor Thompson said, as yet no minutes have been provided from last Friday's meeting. We do not have any control over that because it's actually run by Surrey, and I have tried to chase it up. The Bracknell Forest webpage has a dedicated JHOSC page, so residents can view the minutes and watch the meetings if they wish. We have asked that future dates be added to the page alongside dates for residents to have submitted any questions by. Progress announcing any proposed site is halted at the moment until after the budget, when the hospital review will be announced. So we're hoping but on or around October the 30th, although we'd like it earlier to save any delays. That's when I have been told. I have been having regular meetings with Peter Swallow to actually make sure he realises the importance of the site progressing. I can also confirm all local MPs for Bracknell, obviously Peter for Bracknell, and the MPs for Surrey and Hampshire have been very supportive and in touch with everyone they can to ensure the hospital is rebuilt effectively and on time. When the hospital is confirmed, I am sure the 2 sites will be announced and then go out to consultation. But obviously, until it's actually confirmed the hospital is being built, everything is sort of tied at the moment. Councillor Virgo and I are requesting that the Frimley team do this as a public event and engage questions from the residents. We do agree Royal Berkshire Hospital needs to have input from Bracknell as well. Could I please ask Councillor Pickering as Overview and Scrutiny Chair to please contact the Royal Berkshire Hospital to see where they are on setting up their JHOSC, so we can get involved as soon as they're ready to go on that as well. I'll now hand over to Councillor Virgo and he can give an update on what happened on Friday's meeting. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Councillor Ferguson. If that's okay, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Thompson for this question, because surely this is one of the most important motions affecting us all in this room. Well, an update. So we both were in attendance at the JOS meeting, scrutiny meeting in Surrey last Friday. Members were expecting more information and possibly details of the proposed sites. Therefore, it was extremely disappointing as there was nothing new to tell us. We were both poised to take notes, but frankly, members, there was nothing to write, because the information given was information we had at the very first meeting. Unfortunately, Caroline Hutton, who is the Deputy CEO of Frimley Park Hospital, was not present at the meeting because she'd contacted COVID, although the rest of the team were in attendance. We were told by the team that considerable work was going on with a few sites, with both highways, these were Surrey presumably, and planning and transport, but they could say no more. So after we listened to this for about an hour, I think all the members were vociferously voiced their frustrations and made the point that they are not keeping to their original timetable. And we were extremely concerned about the progress to hit the date of the opening of the hospital in 2030. They stated that they are waiting for the result of the hospital review by Rachel Reeves at the end of October. However, they assured us that the construction and opening in 2030 could and will be met, and there will be time for the public, as my fellow councillors said, there will be time for the public and members to ask questions. And we hope that we can organise a public meeting in due course once we know exactly the sites they have in mind. And I'd just like to reassure members that we are both working extremely hard in that endeavour, and will continue to scrutinise the team at Frimley Park as much as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Virgo. Councillor Wright, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yesterday I was at the Health and Wellbeing Board meeting, where we were also updated on the development of Frimley and identification of the site. We all know what RAC is. We've all heard about Aeros and Crunchy Bars, and we all know that this is a pressing issue. What we also need to be aware of is that the cost so far to Frimley Park Hospital for repairing damaged buildings has cost 30 million, and this number is going up the whole time. It's also costing 3 million a year alone just to keep an eye on the building and to survey it, looking for damage. We also know that the NHS, the staff in the NHS, are experiencing extreme stress. A recent NHS nationally are experiencing extreme stress, and a recent survey showed that 73% of all staff feel burnt out at some point in the last 6 months. So imagine the extra stress of having to work in a building where you're worried about the ceiling falling in and what damage it might do to your patients. So obviously this is a pressing need. However, I've met the Frimley Transformation team, and I think they are doing their best. They have spoken to us on several occasions, both at overview and scrutiny and health and wellbeing meetings. They're looking for a site. The issue is that obviously it's a very commercially sensitive situation, and my concern is that we're maybe feeding this in our anxiety of putting on pressure to identify a site. I think they're doing their best, and I think they're being transparent with us, and I believe that we need to let them know that this is important and this is pressing, but also allow them to do their work. I know that I was assured by Alex White, who is one of the member of the team, that the RAC hospitals, there are 5 hospitals in the country that have been severely affected with RAC issues, and none of those are even under review under the new hospital scheme. They've all been exempt, so they're not even. So I'm slightly confused with what you're saying, Councillor Eggleston, because as far as what he was saying yesterday, he was saying that these 5 hospitals they're not waiting for the autumn review. They're still going ahead. So hopefully that's what we're hearing, and hopefully that's the right thing. But okay, thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Allen.
Thank you. First, just a point of order. I think Councillor Thompson mentioned that he was a Foundation Trust member. Is that of Frimley Park?
Yes.
Therefore, does he need to declare an interest?
Yes. The answer. Right.
Does that is a...
Is that relevant?
I am a foundation member, like 50,000 other people.
Sorry, just you're a patient of?
No, I'm a member of the trust, which is everybody is.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant you were a member of the trust board.
I didn't mention the word board.
Okay, so but Foundation Trust. Just sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Thank you.
That was a misinterpretation. He's not a member of the trust itself.
In that case, you didn't need to declare an interest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think otherwise it would make it quite difficult for him to propose the motion in the first place.
Yes.
So, sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. But I have to say, I am pleased to actually support this motion, because I think whilst I understand it might seem premature in terms of, there's still work going on trying to find, where we're going to put this hospital and stuff like that. It is important. There has been rumours going on that the funding will not be forthcoming from the government, and that's the important thing. Is we need to put pressure on the government to maintain the funding, because I know that our previous MP James Sunderland did a lot of work on trying to make sure that we had the funding from government, even if you say it was inadequately funded. But I think we need to make sure that the idea of the hospital being replaced does not go away in the short term.
Right. Thank you. Any other councillor wish to speak? Right. Councillor Temperton.
I'm very pleased to support this, and as leader of the council, I'd be very happy to convey to the Secretary of State for Health and Social Care this concern of the council's concern of the impact of any delay. It was supposed to be started in 2026, so it's completed in 2030. I think we all know, with planning and everything else and all this stuff, how crucial that would be, how slow things get going. And so I really do think we need to make some decisions as fast as possible, because the people at Frimley Park and Royal Berks Hospital are crucial to this area, because we need both of them. And if Frimley Park moves further away, then we'll all be taken to Frimley Park. So both of them have to, Royal Berks. So both of them have to be good hospitals for our residents. And I'm very happy, I would be very happy to write a letter stating this. So I support this motion.
Right, thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Like others, I'm very pleased to support this motion. I think this is an incredibly important issue for our residents, and I think it's incredibly important as a council that we put that front and centre to our new government and to our new MP as well, that's understood. I appreciate the new government has some very difficult financial decisions to make at this time, but this is an area that we cannot compromise. This is about the health and livelihoods of our residents. I do want to thank Councillors Virgo and Eggleston for their updates on the work of the JHOSC, and it's promising to hear that they are very actively engaging in their role on this committee. I just wanted to draw out the original motion several councils ago when the JHOSC was formed and they were appointed to the JHOSC, requested of them that they engage in a programme of public participation, specifically to hear from our residents on the factors and decisions that are being made in relation to the new hospital, which matter most to residents. And I just want to be clear, it's this programme which the motion before us today is asking for them to provide an update on. They obviously won't be able to speak again in this debate, having already spoken, but I do hope that we will hear from them at a future council meeting with regards to what they're doing to engage with our residents on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room who wants to speak? If there's not, is there anyone online who would like to speak?
No one online, Madam Mayor.
Right. Thank you. So, would the seconder now like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's been a really good debate to bring out some of the challenges and issues that we as a community have with Frimley Park. During my research for this, I read the Public Accounts Committee report of November 23, so pretty recent, sitting while the last government was in power. We're about to have the second reset of this programme. And with every time we have a reset, that means a delay. And every time we have a delay, that the costs will go up, the challenge will become greater. We have an ageing population. There is a challenge I just wanted to highlight and why we need, as a council, to keep the pressure on in this area. There is an aspiration for a hospital 2.0, which would give a standardised hospital in which they can build the Department of Health and Social Care can build standard facilities which offer savings in both the construction and then the operating of that hospital. There are some significant assumptions built into that model. One of them is that there's a future bed occupancy rate of 95%, and unfortunately the reductions in the length of patient stay are unsupported by research that the Department of Health and Social Care commissioned. And I'm reading from the Public Accounts Committee report. The assumptions look particularly heroic in the context of the UK's growing and ageing population, while there is as yet no social care plan in place to alleviate the increasing pressure on hospitals. What this really says is a big part of the assumptions and design of a hospital at Frimley requires a council like ours to pick up significant care challenges to make this work. And it's our responsibility as a council to keep reminding Frimley and others, central government, that you can't have Hospital 2.0 if you don't fund social care properly. It's a complex area, but we as residents and councillors need to keep reinforcing that message. So I hope, like me, you think this was a good, solid debate. It recognised the issues and that you support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, would you like to sum up?
Yes, I would just like to say I would like to thank those councillors who've spoken in support of the ideas behind this motion, re-emphasise the consequences of delay and the financial aspects of social care as brought up by my colleague. Can I recommend you support this motion? Thank you.
The motion is set out on screen for vote. The Democratic Services Officer will count the votes of councillors in the room, so please make sure your hand is clearly raised. Only those in the room can vote. Sorry, those in favour. Unanimous, I think. So there was no one against or abstaining. Good. Right. Thank you. That has carried. And thank you everyone for attending this meeting this evening, and I now declare the meeting closed. But could you remain quiet and seated until the democratic officer confirms the live broadcast has ended?